Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of the Hope for the Soul podcast. Thank you for joining in. And we are getting close. We've either just hit 100 or we're just over 100 episodes. So I know we're getting in that 100 episode area. So we're excited that you're here today. My wife is not here. My dad is not here. But Alex is here. And also we have a special guest, my buddy, my childhood friend, like forever. Jason Wright is on the podcast. Welcome, Jason.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've been talking about it for a little bit.
We have. Weeks.
So Jason is a combat veteran. He's a tennis professional. He's a Renaissance man. He's a good athlete. He's good at basketball. Everything Jason does, he's good at. But so I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We won't have a joke from Kayla. That's the bad news.
I know. I meant to tell her in church on Sunday I was expecting a chicken joke or what
dumb chicken joke.
Some kind of corny thing.
She was supposed to be here, and then something came up with her. She decorates a lot at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And somebody called and asked her if she could help them out. So that's where she's at today. But Alex is here, and we need a Fifi. We need a Teddy update.
Teddy update. No, still in the tree.
Still in the tree.
I don't know if I'm just kind of giving up at this point. Just letting him go for it.
Is it cute, at least, if he's in the tree?
Cute. Yeah, he's cute. He gets up there in the middle and just kind of lays down and sleeps. So it's like, it's cute, but then you're kind of like, well, when he gets out is when he flattens all the branches on his way out.
So he goes to the middle and climbs up.
Mm-hmm.
But when he comes out, he comes just out the branches.
He comes out and will jump out, and it kind of like flattens the branches.
Is he knocking the Christmas ornaments out?
Oh, yeah. A few of them. I have them like where I have the hook like pinched where hopefully they'll stay in place. But there's a few of them that he's like knocked them out. And then, but he doesn't play with them after he knocks them out. So I'm like old cats from previous, they would knock it down to the floor. And then I had hardwood floor growing up, so they would bat it around the floor. But yeah, he doesn't do that.
How high does he go up the tree is the question.
It's a 7.5, and I would say up like 7 foot. Like
he goes up to the top?
He has gone all the way up, like to the point.
He's going to make it fall.
Well, that's what I'm scared of, is he's going to hurt himself, but
he's going to land on his feet.
Yeah, true.
He's not going to hurt himself. He's going to hurt your tree.
My experience with cats, they land on their feet.
I've tried water.
Should we talk about this experience?
Probably not. But I do have a really fat, it might be sensitive to you, but
okay.
So this is in my childhood, and I was a teenager, and we had a cat. I think it was named Licorice, black cat.
Cute.
And it was a cool cat, and it had gotten in a load of dryers, or in a load in the dryer,
oh my goodness.
load of towels. Yeah. And my mom turned it on, didn't realize it. And
oh, poor baby.
Unfortunately, we lost the whole thing of towels that day.
Oh my goodness.
But I was trying to manipulate my way out of school. I was trying to get some tears going, but it didn't quite work.
Oh, you weren't successful?
I wasn't successful.
All right, so you lost a load of towels.
Did you lose Licorice?
What about Licorice?
Oh, yeah.
It's goner.
Out of there.
The whole cycle.
The whole cycle.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm shocked right now.
I can't wait for my mom to hear this.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
Scott one time, my uncle,
mm-hmm.
I believe it was a cat or something. I think it was a cat he threw in the washer one time. He was always up to something. He bought a pony as a boy from like their next door neighbor. First off, like, okay, that's foolishness bound to the heart of the child. Of course, the kid's going to buy a horse.
Yeah,
but the adult, like, not even checking with the parents. So, well, hopefully, Teddy. I always forget Teddy's middle name.
Theodore Lawrence.
That's
Theodore
right.
Lawrence. I always want to say Roosevelt because.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hopefully Teddy doesn't find the dryer.
Yeah, no, he knows where it's at, but I don't think he's big enough to jump into it.
You'd be surprised. keep it closed.
You might not get that deposit back.
I couldn't save Licorice's life, so hopefully Teddy can reap some benefits from,
and he's a black
my
cat
wisdom.
too.
He is.
He's gonna find it.
Oh man.
He's either gonna fall from the top of the Christmas tree, or he's going to get in the dryer. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we go all the way back, Jason.
We do.
I don't remember not knowing you.
Yeah. Our entire lives.
We have pictures. I was going through pictures a couple of weeks ago for a sermon that I preached here. And I was at my mom's house and going through just old pictures I was trying to find old pictures of like our first years here at Conroe Church. But I opened the wrong box and I found like our like second and third and fourth birthdays and all that. And I saw pictures of, I don't know if it was my birthday or Donna's birthday at McDonald's in Pasadena. I think the McDonald's on Fairmont.
Yeah.
Of course, Fairmont.
Yeah.
Right? And you were in them and Rana and Dana. I don't remember who else. It must have been my sister's birthday because it was mainly girls and then me and you. But we both had white hair.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was I think they call it a towhead.
That's great. Yeah. So, and then, so we moved to Conroe. So then I only saw you a few times a year, going back to be with my Grammy and Popsy or Mickey and Christy, and then youth camp days and all that. But then Kayla, as we were leaving Apostolic Temple, Kayla and her family were going to Apostolic Temple.
Yes.
So you grew up with Kayla. You were probably closer to Kayla after we moved off until now than you were me. But so Kayla's dad was a big prankster.
Yes, he
Steve.
was.
So I don't know all the details. I jotted your memory of it, but we didn't go through all the details. So tell me that the high level, it was a altar service at Apostolic Temple. There's no altar services ever in the world like when we were kids, altar services at AT.
Yeah, so it was a good time. And I was definitely not the person I am today. And
Jason has always been about the party.
yeah, I've been about the excitement and this is a slower altar call, not slower, but slower for Apostolic Temple standards, I guess. And somebody was, praying in the pew, and Brother Hicks asked me to lay my hands on him. It was Brother Hicks and Ryan Hagan that kind of,
Both of them.
Yeah, it was both of them together. And
that's a deadly duo.
And so, of course, I did it without, any kind of thinking of what would actually happen. And I think they spoke in tongues.
And you weren't not being spiritual.
I was not being spiritual.
There was a mighty move of God.
There was.
Oh, man. I had experiences like that at camp. Just not going to choir practice and going to the choir and then jumping and running out of the choir loft being stupid and everybody following and the service blow up.
Yeah.
So we have quite the level of anointing or faux anointing at that time of our life. Oh, it's so funny. All right, so then hung out at camps. We ran in the same. We had a lot of mutual friends.
Yes.
We were all about the fun at camp. It was fun. It was basically basketball, softball.
Yeah.
And then flirting with girls.
Yeah.
Typical church camp.
Yeah, I loved it, man. It's whenever I think back on it, I didn't make the right decisions all the time, but the people in my life seemed to it was just a great, safe, fun atmosphere to grow up in. And not saying that everything was perfect, but it's definitely one of the factors that drew me back.
Yeah.
Right. And God had a plan, a different plan for me. And I'm so blessed to be here in this room with you today.
Yeah. I'm excited that you're here. So then after high school, you go to college, right?
No.
You didn't go to college. Okay. So,
Yeah,
so what was your plan?
So I wanted to go play tennis in college.
Okay.
That was my plan.
Okay.
And West Point was really my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was something that I looked at. I had a grandfather that was a retired colonel in the Army, and So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an officer and, all this stuff. Well, I didn't have the grades and I didn't have the discipline to get in up there, and 9/11 happened, and, that was, that's whenever I joined the Army.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. So you served Afghanistan and Iraq, or just Iraq?
Just Iraq.
Okay. And how many tours?
2 tours, 27 months. I was in Samara in 2005, the whole of 2005, January till December.
Wow.
And then Ramadi during the surge, and that was January 2007 to April of 2008, I believe.
Wow. So then 2006, obviously you're still enlisted.
Yeah.
But you're stateside, or are you at a different base somewhere else?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Okay, yeah.
I was a part of the 3rd Infantry Division.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's during the time that I was in, it was a lot of. So because they needed numbers so much, because I was a big partier in the Army,
Yeah.
And I was not doing the right thing whenever I was off duty. Now, whenever I was on duty, I was a great soldier, and it probably helped keep me in the Army, and eventually I got a good conduct medal. That's
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's 3 years of no problems, and combat infantry badge. I did get out with the honorable discharge and all that stuff. So, it took a little bit of maturing a little bit.
Yeah. Which I'm sure some of that happened just because the time frame you were over there.
Yeah.
And so what was the difference on the ground between your first tour and your second tour? Obviously, you're different cities, probably different objectives, but similar in nature.
Yeah.
But what was the
well, they were 2 very different kind of deployments. The first deployment, I was on the ground, so I was dismount infantry, door to door,
wow.
raids, searches. That whole, a lot of guard duty. Yeah, so that was my and it was urban, so it was in the city. And Ramadi was completely different. I was a gunner on a Bradley fighting vehicle, so I was mounted this time.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Bradleys are kind of the big vehicles that replace the Humvees, right?
No.
Okay, what's the
Bradley? Bradley is like an infantry tank.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So it has like a 25 millimeter chain gun cannon, a coax.
But you enter and exit off the back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly what
you're
talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Ramadi, most of our company was outside of the city, and we're kind of clearing that Euphrates River Valley. So it was more country, right along the Euphrates River.
Biblical stuff, man.
Yeah, man, and it's some beautiful water if you can get past the film that's floating on top.
Yeah.
But it looks pretty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was, I guess, with Ramadi, with the surge, they needed numbers because they were going up against some heavy resistance.
And in Ramadi, our first platoon got that detail, and a lot of those guys got Purple Hearts.
Yeah.
Second platoon, I feel like my platoon was the one that lost the most guys during the time that I was in.
Yeah.
Really good friends of mine, that you eat, sleep, grow up with. But yeah, it was 2 completely different deployments. Now, there was a lot of other guys, attachments that got killed in Ramadi. There was some Navy guys that I was in the Bradley behind, and they, there was a few vehicles that walked past, or that drove past a
ID.
Huge bomb, and they just stepped right on it.
Oh my goodness, that's what I was going to ask you. So you said y'all had a lot of casualties. Was a lot of that Was that losing men and women to IEDs, or was that
Yes.
actual gun combat, door to door, typical?
No, no, they're mainly IEDs, suicide bombers.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Um,
Checkpoint type of stuff.
yeah.
Or they just
the first casualty we had in Samara was a checkpoint, but it was from a mortar. So the mortar
they
just landed right on top of them.
My goodness.
So that was like second week
Oh my word.
in country. So I'm 18 or 19 years old, fresh.
Yeah.
And, because you have tanks, what they do is, the rocks over there, it grinds these rocks up into this dust. So we call it moon dust. And
That's awesome.
and it's really hard to, it's kind of difficult to walk through because you never know how deep it is.
And it's easy to bury stuff into.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So,
word. All right. So you served till the end of 2007 overseas.
no.
2008 overseas.
Yeah. So until the middle of 2008.
Okay.
I got out in August of 2008.
Okay. So so you came home from deployment and your time of service was over. Instead of re-enlisting, you decided that it was time to get out.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then what did life look like for you whenever you were honorably discharged?
Well, I got out and I kind of got out with some unrealistic expectations, and I ended up going to school, going to college, and while I was at the University of Alabama.
Okay, so you went to Alabama afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, and
GI Bill.
GI Bill, great,
That's awesome.
great program.
Yes.
And it was during that time at school whenever a lot of stuff, really just started crashing down on me, and I was an alcoholic.
Before we get too deep in this, I would just like to remind you that Texas beat Alabama a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I got that text.
That might be one of the few times that we beat y'all, but we got y'all this year.
I don't know. Texas. There's not too many teams that Alabama has a losing record against, but Texas is one of them.
Really? Well, that probably goes back to like the Vince Young days. And
No, not the Vince Young days. It's like
Colt McCoy?
no,
Or recent?
way before that.
Okay.
Before that. Yeah.
I didn't really follow until Vince Young.
Yeah, we're 2-1 against y'all since Colt McCoy.
Okay.
Whenever we played y'all in the national title game, which I was at.
You're like flex.
Yeah.
And we won.
And we won.
All right, touche. You got my back. All right, so you come back from the service.
Come back from the service.
You go to Alabama.
I go to school at Alabama.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa, right?
Tuscaloosa. And
I got family that lives there. A lot of family over there.
yeah.
Anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. So yeah, I am Roll Tide. But I eventually ended up getting kicked out of school and I guess banned.
Wow.
I don't know if that seems to be something that follows me in places. But I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. For good reason, unfortunately.
Yeah, for good reason. And it's I understand why they did it, and but like that's not a part of my path. It's just something that's a part of my story. But yeah, I don't know. It's I've done a lot of work, man. A lot of work on
Jason's done a lot of work on Jason.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on Jason
And God.
Done
That's a lot of work the last few years, couple years.
Yeah.
So you come back, and so we're going to fast forward several years. So you struggled in life, just dependency, PTSD. So actually, before we move to Conroe, let's back up.
Okay.
Some of the things that you said a few minutes ago, you had some unreal expectations. Was that regarding the integration process? Was that regarding society? Or was that just...
I think I just didn't... I don't know how to explain it, except I just was not prepared for what I was about to walk into.
Because the structure...
And it was, like I was so tired of the deployments and combat and
Seeing stuff.
Yeah, so, I was 23 years old whenever I got out, and so I was like, oh, like I'm seeing all my friends that went off to college and, so I'm like, oh, like I had to chase that.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, so that's kind of where it.
And it sounds like, so all through that, even in your career in the Army, you still had some inner demons that you struggled with at times.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, but the structure, especially on deployment, that really kept you focused, and that kept Jason together.
Yeah, it did, absolutely.
So then when you got out of the military,
I did not have that structure.
The structure was upon you, not your superiors.
Right.
Okay.
And it was time for me to be an adult, and I was a good father because I had a child as soon as my oldest daughter Lana, beautiful little red hair. I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's I wasn't ready, or like I had a lot of stuff I had to work on.
So do you think, and I could be wrong, okay, I'm making a statement, but it's really a question. Do you think it was Jason went into the military as a young adult, really not fully matured as a man?
Absolutely.
The things you saw and experienced and the pressure that that fell upon you required you to grow up in some ways because of your experiences. But then whenever you got out of the military, you were grown in some ways because of the incredible things you did, but also the terrible things that you saw.
Right.
But yet when you came out, your friends had experienced life and had progressed. But when you got out of the military, your life outside of the military was not where everyone else your age was. And so you feel like you were just trying to catch up, and that pressure.
Yeah. I think everything that you said is spot on.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that because that's very well said. That's a good way to enunciate it.
Well, I'm just trying to verbally process. Like, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. Like,
yeah.
Seems like there would be so much maturity that I would have coming out, but then I look around and without the structure, hey man, I got money. I hadn't been spending too much because I've been overseas.
Well,
and
like
nobody can tell me what to do and what not to do. And
yeah.
I've got these wild traits, and I like to have fun and these other unhealthy habits.
Yeah, and like I think one of the things that moved that along was the constant deployments. And so before you get deployed, you're like, well, we're all gonna die anyways. So that was an incentive to go out and just
let's go party.
And so whenever you do that a few times, and you come home and you're like, save money for what?
Yeah.
But
I saved it while I served. Now let's spend it.
Yeah.
So all right. So then, University of Alabama doesn't work out.
Yeah. So let me.
So you said you're banned. So like, is that from like going to school or going on campus or like everything? Like,
no, I think it's from attending
classes.
College there.
Okay. Yeah. I was about to say, man, you can't go to a game.
Yeah.
Oh my
No. No, it's
okay,
and it's only because the university police were involved.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
So it's for good reason, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was off campus, but it was the university police were involved.
Yeah,
so that's it's just something I have to deal with.
You're not proud of it, but it's life.
Not proud of it, but
I
learn
from it and go forward.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing that I did. It's not the best thing I did. It's.
So then, you come back to Houston after all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I come back to Houston, and
do you think, hey, maybe I should tighten up? Maybe I should change my lifestyle a little bit? Or you're like,
no. I got, I switched. So I ended up having surgery, and from that surgery, I ended up basically just switching addictions from alcohol to drugs to painkillers,
wow.
and that progressed.
Yeah.
So
painkillers weren't doing enough, so you had to find something stronger.
Yeah, and like I grew up over here, like my grandparents had a farm out in Dayton, and it was like my zen place. I loved it growing up, me and my brother, like how much fun we had out there. It was
Shout out to your brothers.
Yeah, shout out to my brothers, my cousins.
Cool dudes, man.
Yeah. But so what happened in Ramadi, I lost a couple friends over there, and it was in a farmland. Okay, so that farmland smell is a huge trigger with me.
So going back to that, it wasn't Zen post.
It wasn't the same, and I would physically get ill. I'd throw up, and so I would manage it with drugs and more drugs and more drugs. So, to where eventually I could go out there, but it wasn't. But thankfully today, it's man, it's beautiful.
I see it in your eyes.
Yeah,
the work that God's done. Yeah. All right. So rehab came in, right?
Yeah, the first rehab came in 2013, I think.
Was that Jason?
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. So you were here, but your rehab was in Chicago.
No, I was working up in Iowa. I got arrested in Chicago.
Okay. All right. So your first rehab didn't come in to play because you felt like you needed to get your act together. It came into play because
which is a lot of the reasons why I went to rehab. Mm-hmm. It wasn't to get away from that lifestyle. It was to get away from the consequences.
Yeah. If I do this, they think I'm okay.
Yeah.
So you were trying, I guess, to try to manipulate the outcome in a way.
Right. And
a lot of people do that, and I guess probably for good reason. If you're looking at
absolutely
a sentence or something.
Yeah, and there's a fortunate and unfortunate side with combat veterans. Is like you get more leeway, and which is cool for some people. It works, and other people, it doesn't really. We use the system to my advantage.
Yeah. So then, after rehab in Chicago, what's next?
About 6 more rehabs.
Just back to back to back, or you'd get out?
No, I'd get out. I'd
fall back.
Go back. Same stuff. It wasn't so much I was a criminal, but it was because I was a drug addict chasing the drugs like that. I eventually had to do some criminal acts.
You had to feed
feed my addiction.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, and that plays in. Fast forward. That plays into how that's how me and you reunite. If I can talk, my goodness. So you come back to you're in Houston.
I got arrested up here in the Woodlands.
Okay. Wow.
And so one of the things, and it was for a charge out of Harris County,
mm-hmm.
and there was a little Pentecostal lady that goes to the church in Willis.
Uh-huh. So
this was my first, I guess, I was like, hey, do you know Brother and Sister Smith?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yeah, they're in Conroe, and I'm up in Willis. So that was my first inkling, right? That was God putting
someone in your path to it was to trigger you
absolutely
to get back to church.
And that's what I believe wholeheartedly. And I got out of jail. It was a miracle. I didn't do much time for it.
Wow.
And I got up here, and man, I've been clean ever since.
So good, man.
And I think I reached out on the church website,
You did. I forgot about that. Yeah. I thought it was just social media. Yeah. No, I remember. So that email came to me.
Came to you?
Yeah. Or maybe it came to I think it came to me, or maybe it went to someone else and they sent it to me. But regardless, I saw it. I reached out to you and started talking. And then I think it was that next Sunday you were here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, I wanted to come up here before, but Camp Valor still had, some
you were still in the process to where you couldn't.
Right.
You were still working through your recovery in their program.
Yeah.
So you get to the point in the program to where you can go off site.
Yeah.
You come to church. Get refilled with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
God
refilled with
you.
it.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, it's, it is unbelievable.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about when we're working together with some of our friends, our veterans. Shout out to you guys. We say that there's a difference between sobriety and deliverance. I celebrate sobriety.
Yeah.
Like, you're sober, and I don't know if you still count the days. I don't know if you do that, but you're still maintaining. Hey, I'm not like I used to be, and we celebrate that. But also as believers, we recognize that there's a step above sobriety, and that's when God. So let me back up. Sobriety is when you're just forming better habits to choose something else over an addiction or a bad habit. Deliverance is when you lose the desire and you don't, it's just like, hey, I don't have to choose to do another thing. The desires left me. Now that doesn't mean with temptation it can't come back and all that. But so we're teaching about this, and this is what you've experienced in your life, is that not only am I clean, I'm not clean because of anything I've done, even though you have done time, you have put in the work, you are working on yourself. But the ultimate reason is because God has gotten in the mix in your life, and he's taken away some cravings.
Yeah. Well, so here's the one thing. So this is Hope for the Soul.
Yep.
So I want to give some hope.
Oh, I love it. Come on, dude. Let's do it.
To a granny out there, a grandmother that has had, or a mother, somebody that's had somebody in the church backslide. And the prayers that you pray go answered. Like, they will not be unheard. And, I really think it's, the continual prayer of my granny. And, we just lost her, in January of this year. And that's, and I kind of want to go back. I believe I had the Holy Ghost before I went off, and I went off to the Army and stuff, because I was refilled with the Spirit, and I came into church in here. It's been a lot easier for me to pick up what I left off, and now I'm so open. Like, I hear Brother McLean's preaching, all of this stuff, and I'm seeing it with new eyes, and I'm letting it affect my heart, and it's that's just the beauty of it. So there is hope. I'm telling the people in the church right now that there is hope for the lost loved ones.
I love it. That's something that we try to talk about a lot when I preach and when my dad preaches and other preachers here are teaching or preaching. But you are a visual representative of an answer. You are the answered prayer.
Yeah. And like, I look back in my life and I'm like, oh man, dude, is there anybody more lucky than I am? Because, I give a shout out to my grandmother. It goes a whole lot further than that. In the family that I have, my aunts, uncles, my dad, stepmom, mom, my, on both sides of my family, and brother and sister McLean, elder, and the long like, there's so many people that were there, and especially I remember Craig,
good man. Oh my word,
great man, and the Hernandez family. Like, there's so many people that I can thank. And I don't see all of them. I don't see them very much. And, so this is a way of me honoring them.
Oh, my goodness. So we're not only talking now to parents and grandparents and family, but you are a testimony to what happens when when believers join together.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that if they were telling you, say Craig and Clinton and Ricky and Gabe and all those guys, okay? So if they were being a good friend and a good example to you, and their parents were trying to be mentors to you, and obviously going in one ear and out the other, and you were doing your own thing, but that after you had left, the prodigal, like we talked about Sunday,
right?
After you had made the decision, okay, I'm leaving, I have my inheritance, I'm I'm leaving my father's estate. I'm leaving the church. But all those good people, while they didn't have necessarily contact with you, they were still joined together in unity with your family.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful. What you just said is how when believers join together, because I'm sure there was days that your mom or your dad or your brothers had just lost hope.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to go too deep here. But as someone who struggled with what you did, before you hurt and used and did anything to anyone else, it was the people closest to you that you would go to. It was your family.
Yeah.
And so there was moments when I'm sure they had to have lose hope. Now, maybe there's still a glimmer down in their heart, but up here in their mind, they didn't see a way forward. That I guess this is just who Jason is.
Yeah.
This is just his life now.
And you know, I can't even imagine the hurt that, you know, my dad and mom, grandmother, you know, I can't imagine what those closest to me were feeling whenever I was out there. But I can say they didn't stop praying.
Yeah.
And those prayers came answered. And, you know, one of the coolest things was that my granny saw me clean before she passed away.
Yeah.
You know, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Jason, your story is one snapshot of what God is doing in Conroe Church.
Absolutely.
We have so many, we baptized someone Sunday. That,
Yeah.
You know, there's other people that we can't tell their story yet because the Lord's still working and
Yeah.
some of the details we can't share. But with mine and your relationship, and face it, we'll call it this because this is what it is, the ministry that God is developing in you to help people who have been where you're at and on a
Yeah.
weekly basis. So you've been helping people here locally at the program that helps save your life
Yes.
and turn your life around. And now, just the past few days, another incredible opportunity has come to you to where on a national level you can help other people.
Yeah.
And this is not just work opportunities. Obviously, you're trying to get certification and all that process, and it's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like that you're going right. So you've left the fire to find deliverance,
Yeah.
and you're doing what every believer should do. Whenever you find deliverance and healing and salvation and hope, you have recognized that your job is now not just to sit on a pew, but you have to go back to the same fire that you found deliverance from and help other people find deliverance.
Absolutely.
And so,
man, I'm so excited about, you know, what God has in store for me, for his kingdom. You know, just I never in a million years would I have thought I'd be a member up here in Conroe Church, and you know, I would be doing this. It blows me away.
I text Youngblood boys, Josh.
Yeah.
Me and Josh are super close, and every time that Alex or someone or some of the other people that take pictures on Sundays, whenever they upload those, and I see Jason, I don't care if it's you in the lobby holding one of your babies,
Yeah.
or worshiping. I take that and I text it to Josh, and I said, "Dude, it never gets old," because your story's not over. Your story's just getting started.
Yeah.
A very dark chapter has closed.
Yeah.
But that dark chapter is seed that you've planted in the ground that will not return void. You know, unless the seed falls in the ground and dies, it abideth alone. So when people thought you were dying and you would never turn around, they may have felt right in that. But the reality is something spiritual was happening, and God knew your heart. And even though it was clouded by a lot of things and a lot of people, God was still working his way through. And all of those things are terrible, and we don't celebrate that, and we'd never recommend anyone to do the things that you've done.
Right.
And we're not glorifying that, but we're glorifying the mercy and grace of Jesus Christ, and now how he's going to use that to help other men and women. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, it's you know, and I was spiritually dead for a long time. And I physically, I don't know if I die, you know, I get conflicting stories, but I was in a physical coma.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. This was in 2015.
Overdose or car wreck?
No, it was endocarditis. Wow. So I had, and I shot some bad drugs and it, tore my heart valve and
oh my word.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital for about five months. I was in a coma. So, it was my family, and I had some really good friends, in church, out of church that were,
strong support.
Yeah, strong support. And I still wasn't doing the right thing, even whenever I came out of the coma.
Wow.
So it's, I don't know, like even on the spiritual side, you're like, oh yeah, he's going to need us. But I was physically there too. And, I don't know, it's so great to be rebuilding these relationships with my parents, especially, my mom and dad and, my stepmom and, it's my brothers, because, my brothers don't, like, they're not in church.
How about you? And you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest.
Yeah. So your brothers looked up to you a lot growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. They looked up to me a lot. And then, then they saw all the bad stuff that was going on. But they're seeing me do the right thing now. And, they're seeing what God can do. And that's the biggest thing, because my mom's wanting me to help my youngest brother, a lot with his stuff, because he's kind of in that same path that I was in. And, the only thing I can really do is love him.
So that
I can be there for him.
You're able to minister to the needs of people that are far from God much differently than I'm able to, because while we've all been far from God, okay,
yeah,
my journey was not like yours. My experiences were not like yours. So there's some things like I talk about it all the time on Thursdays that, man, I'm here to help you and I'm your brother, but there's some things I just can't relate to.
Right.
But you are able to relate to people who are far from God, whether it be family or friends, because you have shared experiences.
Yeah.
And that helps you to not be, because face it, Jason, I'm sure you experienced it. There's a lot of us church people who mean really good and have the purest of intentions.
Absolutely.
But our approach is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
Sure, but like I'm seeing stuff in a whole different light now, and so, I can't remember a person in my childhood in my church at Brother McLean's in Pasadena. I can't remember a single person that had a negative approach on me.
Oh, that's so powerful. Oh my goodness.
And I don't know, but yeah, sure. There's going to be some things that you're not going to relate to me with.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's probably where I was trying to go that I could have rephrased better, is because they couldn't relate. It's not that their intentions were bad, but their, I guess, not reliability, their relatability. They couldn't break through the wall, not because they were bad or good and you were bad, just because the experiences were different.
Right. And there's, at the places that I'm helping out in, I can put myself in every single one of their shoes, experience what they experienced, because I have in the past, more than likely. There's still probably a few things that I wouldn't be able to relate on, but yeah, and it is cool, like I love those guys that, at both places that I get to help out with.
And this new opportunity.
The new opportunity
is a God thing, bro.
Oh man. It's, like after I came back from it, after experiencing it, and your dad was preaching, I just told you about, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Everything happened. but like I still never lost hope. I never lost my joy. I
told my wife that night after you told me everything that was going on. I told her before we left the parking lot, like I was overwhelmed. I said, babe, this is what he's facing. And I was like, how can we help? And then I was like, but he had a smile on his face. Oh my word.
Yeah. And I mean but it was things like that, I guess, cause I heard the last podcast, your dad's talking about happiness and, happy people. And, it's not that we enjoy going through the tough times. It's like I have that sustained happiness, joy in that trust in God. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know you're there and I know you see it. And
so you saw at that first op, you saw a glimmer of hope of this is something that God can use me in, and this would be a great opportunity not only for you, but for them.
Well, I had no idea about this. I was strictly I was just going through the program.
Okay.
I was just blown away by how they had it, the philosophy behind it all. And it's like, man, this is great. And, and I was so excited to have been able to experience it during this time in my life.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what would happen, but in the few months that I've been back from that op, they now sent me out to a leadership summit, and they want me to come on board with them. And man, talk about guys that, I went to physical war with a group of guys, and I would never go to war with anybody else. Yeah. Like those were my guys. Mm-hmm. On this side, this is a spiritual war, and I include my spirit, my church family in this.
Wow.
I wouldn't go into this spiritual war with anybody else. Yeah. And so it's in just a few month time frame, like that doesn't, that
it
doesn't
all turned around.
Yeah, it all turned around. But and in that time frame, I experienced so many attacks. From a financial to a spiritual, to a
relational,
even physical.
Yeah,
I got really sick with that pneumonia stuff for, that was like the last little dagger, but
a deep dagger.
Yeah, it was a deep dagger. It put me in bed for about a week, but it I don't know. I never lost that joy, and God's doing miracles, opening doors, and I truly believe, because that night your dad was preaching about something, and he said something about the doors being open. It's going to be open, and I'm thinking of something else, and it happened to be a different door. Yeah. And same sort of thing. Just it wasn't where I had my focus. Yeah. So whenever it happened, I was like, oh, I gotcha. But yeah, I mean, it was amazing.
So you've been here at Conroe Church a year now, year and a half?
Yeah, about a year and a half, because I'm almost at 2 years.
Wow.
Up here.
And in 2 years, you've gone from, face it, you were up here, you were up here up to no good, and then what kept you here was the consequences of no good.
Yeah.
And so you came here literally at the bottom.
At the bottom. Yeah,
of addiction, of you name it, and then through Montgomery County Jail, and seeing somebody that looked like they were a Christian, that spurred your heart and spurred your mind.
Well, I knew she was Pentecostal.
Yeah, and so then from there, you say, "Hey, I got to get back to church."
Yeah,
and it hadn't been an easy road.
It hasn't been easy.
It's been a rough 2 years.
It has,
but through it, God's been straightening out the crooked places.
Yes.
He's been smoothing out the rough places.
Yes, he has.
And all the while he's working on you, he's using you to work on others.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, let me just talk a little bit. I'm going to look at you, but I want to look at the camera, but I'm not, all right?
Yeah.
That's where we need to be as Christians. The more God does for us, the more we should extend the hand to others and be busy in his kingdom, whether that's helping somebody else or pursuing something else in our life that God's laid on our heart. The more we are obedient and get our eyes off of ourselves, the stronger and faster he's going to fix our areas and the areas in our life that need help. So,
yeah. And, so the last Bible study we had, and, I remember that verse, too much has been given, much is to be expected. Or,
required,
required. So it kind of put it in perspective. I'm like, oh man, I need to do a whole lot more, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it, and I'm continuing. That's something that I'm moving forward in my life.
And not only are you doing it, God is rewarding it with compensation.
Yeah, he is.
He's saying, look, this is where you've been. This is where I want to take you. And to prove that this is where I want to take you, I'm going to supply all your needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude.
And, and it's I'll tell you, so I'm probably the brokest that I've ever been in terms of financial, worldly wealth. But man, the spiritual wealth that I've had in the last year and a half is, the growth in that is exponential. Like it's such sustaining joy and peace and, hunger, like I can't explain it, man. It's one of those miraculous things, because I went from the complete opposite, hating everything, playing the victim, all this stuff. Oh, I had this happen to me. I had that happen, but I'm singing a completely different tune today.
I think, Jason, I'm not a prophet, okay, so I'm not prophesying, but I think what God does sometimes, and I've seen this in many people in my own life, and it's maybe what's happening in your life, is we rely on finances because we need finances.
Yeah.
But then whenever we start relying on that, that becomes the foundation of our life. And so sometimes God just has to mess up what we think the foundation is to say, hey, this is where I want you to build. If you build your house on the sinking sand, when the storm comes, the house is going to be swept away.
Yeah.
But when you build your life on the rock, we know the rock is Jesus.
Yep.
When we build our life on him, build that strong foundation, and then we're seeing it, how God restores the things that's been lost.
Yeah, he does.
And, there's so many people, there's so many testimonies. My dad's working right now on trying to get a family from our church on the podcast it's not the same story. It's a lot, the story's so much different than yours.
Yeah.
But in their family with situations that are very similar to yours. And so, but they came to God extremely broken in so many ways. And now what God has done in them is incredible. And it's happened in several families. But I think what I love so much is now we don't have to talk about, look what God did in the early 90s and the late 90s and the early 2000s.
Right.
Now it's, hey, there's this guy named Jason. There's this girl named so-and-so. There's this family named so-and-so. And so I give God praise, not only for what he's doing in your life. Foremost, I give God praise for what he's doing in your life. But I give him praise for what he's doing in this church.
Absolutely.
And it's just the beginning, bro.
I know it. All praise is in his name. Thank you, Jesus, for everything that he's done. The whole path that, I was on, he never left my side. He was there, ready to receive me whenever I decided to look his way and start seeking after him. And I'm somebody that knows that prayers go answered. Like I know that. I still have a tough time praying sometimes. But I am doing better, but I do know that it works.
It does. All right, so a few minutes ago you talked to family, said don't give up prayer, and you just touched on that.
Yeah.
Now I want you to talk to the other Jasons. I want you to talk to people who are a couple years behind you in their journey.
Okay.
Do what you do at these other places where God uses you.
Yeah.
And then we'll close.
So I think people in my circle. So let me tell you, the missionary from Spain, he had a sermon on faith.
Burgess.
No.
Herod. Yeah.
Herod. Yeah.
June of
I was
last year.
say the Roman guy. But he had a sermon on faith that I've heard it a million times, all that stuff, but for some reason, how he, moved it onto us, how he presented it, I was like, what? That's duh. And people put faith, can put faith in anything. But whenever you start putting faith in your recovery, putting faith in God, you start going to church. People think of faith as, just religion. They think of the legalistic, that kind of stuff. And that's not what faith is. So, I highly recommend putting your faith in God. And the first is in prayer, first and foremost. And then it's, going to church. It takes a while to build up a network around you that's solid. I'm like, what has helped me help those guys, locally, is having that foundation for something that I trust and I know works. And that was with your church, this church, and with our history, and it's been able to really help solidify that so I can give back.
Wow. Well, Jason, I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you.
This church is so proud of you. Good. I've already said it, but I tell all my friends, like all of our friends that we share. It's unbelievable. So.
Yeah, Chase, I got to give Chase Fisher a shout out real quick.
Oh, talk to him.
Chase, because he hit me up on he texted me the other day, and I guess he saw us on whenever you call me up on stage.
Oh yeah,
or something along those lines. But I haven't seen him in a while. But he, I've probably known him the longest. Yeah. Like I developed that really close friendship.
Touch, yeah.
That's I love, like, we had a really great group of guys growing up. So we had a fun group. Yeah. We had a fun group. And
probably had a little too much fun.
Yeah, maybe. But like, it's cool to see a lot of the guys that we grew up with in the ministry.
Yeah. It is cool.
It's really neat.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, however you consume this episode. Do me a favor, share this with a friend. Share this with somebody that's going through an issue with their family, with a loved one, or maybe share this with someone who has a similar story than Jason, who's ventured away from God, or maybe has never known God. And I believe that this episode can be an encouragement not only to you, but to people who are contemplating coming back to God. So thank you for listening. This has been good. I don't know how long it's been. Awesome. I don't care. I might replay this one for a couple weeks. So love you guys, and we'll see you soon here on Hope for the Soul.